Okay, you know the movies, you know the comics, you know the cartoons, but now you have the RPG of Transformers. This is like a typical RPG along the lines of D&D and things like Pathfinder. But what this does, it actually brings you into the realm of Transformers unless you create your own Autobots. And so you can see it has a forward plus table of contents just like everything else. So it goes through pretty much everything you need to know about like the role playing game and how to play Autobots and like in their aegis war against the evil Decepticons. So basically, this first part is your introduction. So it gives you basically a whole chapter on background information, just like for like the comics and like the cartoons, the movies. So I grew up like I'm probably gonna date myself with this, but I grew up with Generation One, where with Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Cliff Jumper, and of course they have here they have like actual slight short paragraphs on the actual characters that you're going to come across. So like I said, Brainstorm was one of the headmasters, like a Blur. If you remember from the '86 cartoon movie, he was great. So we got Chrome Dome, Cliff Jumper, of course they said Bumblebee. So you got a whole chapter on different characters that you can use as kind of like NPCs. So like you can see a picture of Alita One, and you can remember her from Generation One, and of course everyone's favorite dinosaur, Grimlock. And so like I said, this whole gives like a chapter background information on different, and this gives different characters you can use as NPCs. So then it gets into your typical character creation in chapter two. So it follows pretty much the same kind of concept as other RPGs. So what you do is you want to get like a kind of like a character concept, and then what you're going to do is basically do score like skill points, and so it's kind of similar to like I said D&D. So what you can do is you can actually see in the back here that the actual character sheet. So it's going to be slightly different than say D&D. So you can see you have three different or four different in a sense abilities. You got your strength, speed, smarts, and social. So stuff like this that when comes to mind is probably the games War for Cybertron and the Fall of Cybertron for the Xbox 360. So those released 11, 12, 13 years ago. So and what you do is you got the four built in a sense abilities, and then you got skills underneath that. What you do is you can rank up and roll dice for type of the deal, just you would for other role playing games. So that's the actual character sheet that you have in the back. So in a sense as you're going through, you can see here you're going to increase your skills and skill points and essences and stuff like that is what they call. So this gives a step by step in a sense way to create your character. So you can select your influences, what kind of what you're good at. So you can create an origin, maybe you're a scout, sort of a type of character like Bumblebee, or you're a type of leader, sort of like Optimus Prime, or maybe you're a warrior like Ironhide, or a Warpath. Some that come to mind. So, and like I said, this basically goes step by step, and so it gives you details on how to actually create a team, not only a player but a team. So you can do what I mentioned a session zero before, is actually get together and start getting together and start creating your character, so you can actually create that team. And then in chapter three it builds on that, so you can start doing backgrounds and kind of fleshing out your characters. And so you can see you can have multiple influences, and so it gives in a sense, ideas on how, what kind of player that you want to play. You could do like a bureaucrat, a cube player. It says they're like experimenter would probably be someone like Wheeljack, and he comes to mind like a former senator. It will probably be like someone like Alpha Trion. That he's the type of character that comes with of course you got like these are in a sense kind of like classes. So like it kind of like in a sense flushes out your character. So like the gladiator, I think like most people would think of Megatron as like the stereotypical gladiator. A hunter would probably be someone like your seekers like Starscream, Thrust, and like Skywarp. Those guys. So like you got like different character classes. Like inventor would be someone like Perceptor, or machinist would probably be like a prowl or someone. So like you got different types of classes here that you can pick from, like in a sense backgrounds, so you can kind of flesh out your character. So you're not necessarily playing like everyone's playing the same type of character. So then in like chapter 4, you can start picking your origins. So like think of like the recent movie like Bumblebee. So like that's kind of like an origin movie, you could say. So like you pick like origins sort of like kind of similar to backgrounds that you'd have in like a D&D. So this is just like another way to flesh out like your characters. And so in a sense, like what you can do is like actually pick out like your chassis selection, so you can actually pick out like the type of like robot that you transform into. And so like, or like, and robot modes, so you necessarily like you can see like a Sea-Watch here. So like you can be like a boat, of course you can be like a truck like Optimus Prime, or like just like anyone, like you could be a plane. So that kind of like lets you choose what kind of like a robot like you can play. So like you can see like another examples like Grapple, Warpath, and like a Hound right here. So then like in chapter 5 here, it actually gets into like roles. So like I'll probably reference like the War for Cybertron and the Fall of Cybertron games. Think of like when you're playing the multiplayer, you have like the 4 different types of classes. So in a sense, that kind of expands on that, and like this will kind of like bring it to like games like that, plus the comics and TV shows. It kind of like puts you in the driver's seat, so to speak, of creating your own Autobot, your own like a robot in disguise, so to speak. So this chapter kind of helps like flesh it out like with even more options to like build upon like your character. So like now this is just like it's slightly different than D&D. So like you're like, going to use like different types of dice, and like not maybe necessarily going to use like all the like same types of dice that you wouldn't like get D&D. So like this would be like a great way to get out of like your typical like 5th edition type of deal, and like go into like a whole new set of role-playing games. So like as you can go through these chapters, you can see like it builds upon the different examples of like of types of characters that you can play, the backgrounds, and like the and like perks, like you can see here with this one. It's sort of like access like feats that you find in like a D&D. So like you can like also get like yeah, like as I'm going through this, like the actual like background, these like options would be like more like backgrounds, or maybe like specialized classes, sort of like or you could say like stuff like you'd find like arcane archer, or the assassin, specialized type of like character classes that you could build into. And so like this is the like I failed to mention that this is the actual like core rule book. So it goes into like all that you need for this game. So like I've only ever seen like adventure games at my local like store that I usually go to, and so like I haven't seen any expansions yet. So I'd have to personally like see if they have like any actual expansions. But I have seen adventure sets. So like you don't necessarily need to get the adventure set because like you could probably build your own. And so like as I'm going through this, you can see like it goes in further detail on the essences and skills that you build like in the character sheet that you saw. So it gets further in depth into those and gives you like ideas on like how to use your skills and like your skill dice. So like and as I'm going through this, I actually stand corrected. So like you do use like several different types of dice. So like it works on like a kind of like rolling uh, base. So like the better you're at, like the better dice you use. So like I remember a game called Alternity that you used the similar types. So maybe you have like a base of like a D6, and like the better you got, you go up to D8, D10, D12, and it would give you a better a chance to success. And like this sort of, you could say probably similar to like a Blue Rose game where like I'll be getting into where they roll 3 6-sided dice, and they roll one is kind of like a perks one where they or like a stunt one where you can like you roll like a stunt one like you're after you roll the 3 6-sided dice, and like if you get like doubles type of deal, you can do like a specialized stunt type of deal, but that's like a whole different type. So like and difficulties kind of work similar to like the actual like difficulties in like D&D. So like you roll dice depending on the difficulty. So like and you get like a plus and minuses, or so like you might in a sense like roll like going back to like the actual like table here. You might be able to roll like a 3d6 type of deal for like if you're really good at something, and based on like the actual table here, like depending on the difficulty, you could quite also have like bonuses and stuff. So like this like I have yet to really get into this myself, so I'm kind of still new to this one. So I'm kind of still kind of like but like unfortunately, I have most of my experiences in D&D, and like haven't like gotten Pathfinder, which in a sense is kind of like based off like a third edition. That's where most of my expertise lies. So this is like a whole different type of system that you can do. So and it gives like a whole new gaming system type of deal. So like you're going to find that a lot in like a lot of the other role playing games, especially ones like the other ones I'll be getting into, like the Blue Rose one I mentioned. So they do run on like different systems. So like if you're getting tired of running a D&D campaign and running with the same system, you can get into something like this and use a completely different system, and not only get out of like a fantasy setting, but you can get into like a sci-fi setting, or like in this case become like your own Autobot team. So now like we're getting into the chapter of like the equipment that you can pick up. So like your guns, your ammo, and like your special knickknacks, stuff that you can pick up along the way. So like it goes like through like starts off with the actual weapons list as I move my hand out of the way. And so like it go like it, and also you can like you can see you can upgrade your equipment too. So like in a sense, going back to like Teletran 1 and like the Autobot base, you can like have like someone like Wheeljack work on like upgrading your weapons and your gear that you're using. So the like I said, I've yet to get really into like a game like this. But for all you Transformers fans, like if you're not into like this yet, I would say definitely get into it, because it lets you, in a sense, be your own Autobot. So like, and you can see the artwork in here. Like most of the other books is like, I'd say great and everything. So like, definitely goes in depth and everything. So like, and then you can see how like just like any core rule book, like you don't need anything beyond this, like because it gives a whole chapter on how to run combat. And so you can see like kind of like it runs similar to like the D&D concept, where like you're doing initiative, and like and things like that. So and I guess it's like the different types of actions you can do, which looks like to be similar to like the D&D concept. So like a movement, probably slightly different measurements for movement, but like along the same kind of like the same concept. And of course it goes into also like the different types of attacks as well. So it gives you in-depth knowledge on how to actually do different types of attacks, like whether it's melee, blast attacks, like with the guns, and maybe you have like you said, like here, like you have multiple weapons. So like maybe you're someone who has two guns type of deal instead of just one, one big shotgun. You have like two pistols or something. So, good old wheelie from like the '86 cartoon movie. So and of course also like it goes into like the different sizes too. So like just like you have like different sizes in D&D, you have like the same type of concept here with the different sizes of like robots and everything. So like you'd have like you can see like the different types of Decepticons and Autobots. They kind of like scale into like this, so you can get an idea of like how big each and every one is. So this is definitely like one of those ones that's like a great alternative to D&D. So it's I being a big Transformers fan and growing up with it as a kid, I'd say it's definitely like worth a pick up and getting into. So especially if you're like sick and tired of running through D&D and or Pathfinder, and so like you see here the chapter 10 actually gets into like exploration. So like in a sense, think of like back in like Generation 1 with like the whole they crash land on Earth, so you can start like in a sense exploring Earth and like trying to do like a scouting missions type of deal. So that's what comes to mind with like exploration. So like and then think of like the actual Generation 1 cartoon where they actually go to locate the different locations like the Hoover Dam, or like you can see here the ark that they crashed in on Earth. And of course most people will probably remember the Decepticon base where they tried to use a space ark to escape back to Cybertron and failed and ended up crashing into the ocean. So I can say in a sense draw a lot on like a Generation 1. So like I mentioned that a lot because it's like that's what I grew up with. And of course I'm sure that like other people grew up with like maybe Generation 2, or like with the most recent one coming out, I'm sure a lot of people are big fans of Beast Wars. So I did watch that and like weekends when way back when I was in 7th and 8th grade. I remember watching that like before I had to go to football practice or like football games on like Saturday mornings, as I was playing modified football in 7th 8th grade. So and then chapter 12 kind of gives you ideas on how to use like the threats, or like use Decepticons to kind of for your missions. Instead of adventures, they're called missions. So and also now it gets into like actual Pacific. This it also gives you stuff on Pacific Decepticons that you can use as like villains. So like before they actually had like ideas for they showed like quick blurbs on the actual Autobots, so you can use as like supporting NPCs. Here they actually have like the different like actual Decepticons that you can use as villains for your adventures, and so you pretty much go through all the ones through like Generation 1, and of course they also get into like the comics and like later variations of Transformers, because there's quite a lot that's out there. It's quite a big franchise from generation to generation, from Generation 1 to 2 to Beast Wars to the Michael Bay movies, and to two most recent ones with the Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast or whatever, which I've seen both of those. So like I personally I like the Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast better than like the Bay movies. So I'm probably sure that like there's probably a lot of people like that might agree with me, but like of course there's probably going to be people that disagree with me and say they like the Bay movies better. So like to each his own. So And as you can see, it gives like a pretty much long list of like all the Decepticons that you can come across. And of course, like Soundwave was probably like one of my favorite Decepticons, because like he was basically was hit with him and all of his cassettes that he had. So that he was like, I remember him being great in like Generation 1. So, and then of course it gives you kind of like a powered down, like a kind of like a low powered enemies that you can use. So this would be like a great alternative to like I reiterate, to D&D and or Pathfinder. So, and it uses like a whole type of different system, which like I'd actually have to run through to get used to myself and everything, because like it's like a different type of system than D&D and or Pathfinder uses, because like Pathfinder uses like I mentioned D20 system that's based off of third edition, and of course like fifth edition has it's built upon third edition, fourth edition, and like I think it kind of disregards second edition, but like it kind of builds on that stuff to kind of do like something slightly different. So it also gives you like ideas for like human threats and NPCs, as it says. So like sometimes like in the cartoon generation, you can probably remember that they come across some humans that aren't necessarily like allies. They actually are like villains. They want to work with like Megatron and Decepticons, so they give you equipment that they use as well. So like in a sense, it kind of like sets it up for an adventure on Earth. So like, and then of course with Chapter 13, it actually ends up like giving you an adventure to run on. Through, so like you can have like a first adventure that you can run through, and like not necessarily have to buy the adventure books that I mentioned, so you can like in a sense build, like use this and then build off from it. So like like I said, like with pretty much every core rule book that you'll find, that pretty much gives you all that you need to run like a campaign in this specific setting. And so like I said, having grown up with Transformers and being a big fan, like I kind of had to get this, and so like I'm kind of hoping that I can start getting more people like into role playing in my area. So like I said, like the artwork's pretty good in this. So this is the Transformers rulebook in a nutshell, and so like basically just like a quick overview to kind of flip through the book and show you what it's all about. So that way, maybe like you can get down to like your local gaming store and actually pick one of these up. So that way you can get into role playing yourself. So you have like not options other than Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder that I'll reiterate. So like I go through this to give you the idea of like, hey, look, there's other role playing games out there. So like this is just one of many that are out there. So like I'll probably like get into the Blue Rose RPG that I mentioned next time. So to give people more ideas on like in case you're not necessarily into like Transformers or D&D or Pathfinder. So like this is just, like I said, another one of the many options that you have for role-playing games, and like the experience that you're going to have with people gathering around the table, it's going to be phenomenal. So definitely check this one out. It's definitely well worth